China wants to be the leader of the green energy transformation. But is it mainly guided by climate goals or the development of its own economy? Huge investments in solar power and electric vehicles have already given Chinese companies an advantage over their Western competitors. Where does China see its opportunities, and what problems might it face?
W Chinach polityka klimatyczna jest podporządkowana.
Climate policy is subordinate to industrial policy in China. The green transformation moves at a pace dictated by economic policy. The priority of the economic policy of the leaders of the People's Republic of China is, above all, to strengthen economic security, including energy security.
The green transformation we've been witnessing in China over recent years fulfills all the fundamental objectives of Beijing's industrial policy. It bolsters economic security, including energy security, and supports economic activity and development based on domestic technologies.
This is why China is both the world leader in investments in renewables and also the world leader in coal energy, and of course in nuclear power.
But climate change is not a one-sided issue for China.
Chiny wykorzystują również argumenty klimatyczne.
China is also able to use climate arguments to promote its own output abroad. It's a very large exporter of green technologies. On the one hand, this stimulates its economic activity, and on the other, it increases the dependence of China's foreign partners on their supplies. For the Chinese government, the issue of reducing emissions is of course highly important. But that's in part because it's sensitive to how China and the government of the People's Republic of China are viewed globally. Relying on coal for energy production does not currently have the best press, so developing green technologies is another way for the Chinese government to improve its image with its international partners.
Climate goals can also provide China with a means of applying pressure on its external partners.
Szeroka adaptacja OZE jest dla Chin.
The widespread adoption of renewable energy is essential for China because in 2026 the EU is introducing the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism to reduce the import of goods produced using polluting energy sources. China is investing a lot in green energy to cancel out that tax.
Despite years of attempts to diversify, around 60% of China's electricity needs are still met by coal. This chart clearly shows how China has added much more coal power over the last 2 decades than it's withdrawn. Although China can call on its own coal resources to satisfy its needs, this is not the case for oil and gas.
One są głównie sprowadzane z zagranicy.
They are mainly imported, which obviously creates a risk for China's economic security. So the Chinese government strongly supports electrification in order to reduce its dependence on imports of raw materials. Renewables obviously require foreign raw materials when these installations are being produced. In order to produce photovoltaic panels or batteries to store energy, you need raw materials which China doesn't produce enough of. But once they've been produced, of course, they use domestic sources, meaning sunshine, wind and water and so on. That's why the Chinese government is supporting the electrification of the economy. On the one hand, it knows they can rely on domestic coal to produce electricity. And on the other, once they've invested enough in renewables, these will also be a domestic supply of energy, as opposed to the imported oil and gas in the current energy mix.
Technological development is of crucial significance for the Chinese government.
Dlatego Chińczycy bardzo mocno stawiają na rozwój tych technologii.
China's counting on the development of technologies where it's either already overtaken the West or is trying to catch up with it. One example where China's advantage has enabled it to overtake the West is in solar and wind technology. In general, it's very important in so-called clean energy, in part due to economies of scale, due to government support, but also due to a broader development-orientated industrial policy. China has seized the advantage over its foreign competitors in those areas of the economy. It's the largest global producer of photovoltaic panels and wind turbines, but it's also the largest global producer of them at almost every point in the production of those technologies. On the one hand, this allows it to strengthen its energy independence, and on the other, it gives them an advantage over their foreign competitors, thus facilitating the overseas expansion of Chinese businesses.
Unfortunately, this presents Western politicians with a serious dilemma.
Zielona energetyka i zelektryfikowany transport
Green energy and the electrification of transportation are not just viewed as developing technologies with great future potential in China, but also in the whole world. The governments of other countries are faced with a serious challenge. On the one hand, they want the green energy transformation and a reduction in emissions. They're striving to achieve ambitious climate goals. But on the other hand, they don't want to increase their dependence on Chinese supplies, and they want to defend their own industry and jobs and the development of domestic technology.
Green technologies continue to play an increasingly important role for the Chinese economy.
w obliczu poważnych problemów gospodarczych.
The Chinese economy is faced with serious economic problems due to the real estate crisis, and also because the economic recovery was disappointing after the zero-COVID strategy was abandoned. The development of energy is a crucial source of activity for the entire economy. Analyses from prestigious centres show that last year the broader category of clean technologies made up 20%
or as much as 40% of GDP growth.
Real estate has so far played the crucial central role in China's economic activity, but that role is now being taken over by the energy sector. And we're not only talking about the production of renewable technologies, of course, but also about their implementation. And we're also talking about areas such as the development of electric energy transportation, so that includes developments in the production of electric vehicles.
However, the energy transformation could face serious challenges.
Wyzwanie stanowi adaptacja systemu elektroenergetycznego.
One challenge will be to adapt the electric energy system to increase power from renewables to a more effective use of the newly installed power. The distribution network needs to be rebuilt, as does the energy storage network. The regions in China which have the greatest potential for producing renewable energy are not those which use the most electricity. The most renewable energy is produced in northern China, northeastern and northwestern China, but energy demand is highest in the coastal areas in the east and south of the country, where economic development is the most advanced and where most people live. The development of renewables is an opportunity for China to increase its energy security in the long term, but while it's ongoing, it's also a threat, because it's dependent on raw material imports to create photovoltaic panels and wind turbines. A small percentage of them are extracted in China, but China's dominance is in processing those substances and adapting them to the requirements of renewable technology.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more insightful content.